Ben Van Kerkwyk, welcome to Reality Check.
Ross, thank you very much for the introduction. That's very kind. And likewise, I will say I'm also have been a fan of your work for quite some time, and it's a real honour to be here.
Well, mate, we love the idea of causing mischief with doctrinaire dogmaticism. And one of the things I love about UnchartedX is you take us down paths with fastidious detail and analysis. And I find if I read online, you're often debunked by doctrinaire archaeology and dismissed out of hand. And frankly, there's not a lot of logic behind how they're so dismissive. I think one of the things I like to do on Reality Check is bring people face to face with obvious mysteries, just like the UAP mystery. It's in plain sight. And the evidence that I see that you're citing it's in plain sight. It's right under our noses.
The pyramids. It's only a slightly less censored topic than the moon. People will chat a little bit about the pyramids. Sometimes people say stuff about the pyramids like, that's how the pyramids are built. But people don't really know how the pyramids are built. When people say that, what they're talking about is slaves building the pyramids through slave labor over decades and centuries. Right? That is what they mean when they say that, right? Like, that's how the pyramids are built, is people pushing granite stones weighing hundreds of tons over wooden logs. That's what they mean when they say that. People sometimes make jokes about the moon landing too, but it's a different kind of joke.
So, mate, very quickly, before we get into ancient Egypt, give me the orthodox model of human history. Tell me when human civilization is meant to have begun.
Well, you're quite right when you talk about the doctrine and the dismissal of perspectives that are alternative, or that have an alternate timeline, or they are suggesting alternate perspectives on our ancient history. And in fact, our perspective on human civilization and the history of it really hasn't changed very much over the last 150 years. It's one of those things that stayed fairly static. The orthodox timeline suggests that civilization really started only some 6,000 years ago. And this is, of course, the Fertile Crescent, Mesopotamia, ancient, that part of the world. That was the Babylonians and Mesopotamians started what we call civilization, then closely followed by the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Chinese, etc. Only some, 4,000 BC, 6,000 years ago, which has led us to a path of, I guess, our modern civilization today. That doctrine, which is what it is, has been increasingly challenged by new discoveries across many different scientific fields, as well as discoveries from within archaeology itself. And unfortunately, for one reason or another, it really hasn't affected, I guess, the mainstream position of civilization itself. One of the things that I like to point to is having shifted dramatically during this period where we've thought civilization is 6,000 years ago, is the extension of the human timeline itself. So for a long time, if you go back far enough before the age of reason, the age of science, you have the biblical interpretation of the human species, 6,000 years.
I kind of mostly skip over the Egyptian Old Kingdom and New Kingdom stuff. You can go read all about that on Wikipedia, and it wouldn't take you very long. One of the points that he'll make a couple times in here is that the Egyptian pyramids start off as really super awesome and ginormous and amazing and precise, and they get worse. So the older they are, the farther back that you go, the better they're built. And the newer ones that have been built since, the newest ones, are the most fucked up, decayed, least precise. So like I like to start here with the pyramids, is kind of what they just kind of started with, you know. Oh, well, they say the pyramids were built 7,000 years ago, but it doesn't seem like they were. The Egyptians don't say they built them. The big ones, the ancient pyramids of Giza. The Egyptians say they inherited a lot of stuff, including the pyramids, from whoever was there before and built all this stuff and made all this stuff, like what they're talking about there. Bosses, the pottery that's, you know, super high tech and were heirlooms and buried with the pharaohs, but even the pharaohs and the kings say that they got their pottery from the people that were in Egypt and built everything and made everything like the pots before them. So, you know, it's just there's weirdness on top of weirdness on top of weirdness when you want to talk about pyramids. That's why it's best to just start here. You know, I think they definitely talk about this episode, this NewsNation Coulthart episode is very recent, 1 month ago. It's 1 hour long. This is a great presentation by UnchartedX, Ben there. And he always does a good job. He's one of the best people to talk about this subject ever. So in here, they'll talk about all of it. They talk about the pottery. They talk about the batteries, only a little bit. They talk about the batteries, but they do mention his channel over and over again. They talk about the other guy, I call him, Christopher Dunn, quite a bit. Christopher Dunn studied the vases, the statues, the pyramids. You know, he says the pyramids are basically power sources, but when you combine them with the other high technology, as UnchartedX, Ben calls them, the granite cases that are in the big giant ancient Giza pyramids, the 100-ton granite cases made out of single solid stones of granite, that they were making batteries. They're supplying energy. They're using the pyramids to create energy, supply energy, communicate with over long distances, maybe other planets. And also to make energy, but store it. So make batteries and make all the components that you would put into a battery to store energy, like crystals, very precise, perfect crystals, a very precise, perfect, measurements, so they could go into very precise, perfect pottery to provide wireless energy. So they don't get that detailed in this interview, but they do talk about all of those elements, kind of. It's the order I hear. Okay, we got the videos. So here's UnchartedX.com and on YouTube. Lectures, every type of presentation, long videos, short videos, everything you need to know about the pottery. I think this is just one of the videos, but so a few videos back to back about them scanning a lot of the pottery that they could get their hands on with, you know, ultra precise scanning equipment techniques, and that anyone involved in looking at the data that they got after they scanned the pottery is just blown away at the precision of the vases. This was one that I mean, people hate talking about this. They do not like this video. They do not want to entertain that this video even exists before and after they watch it, and it's just not a discussion they want to have. And that's these guys making electricity with really just water and some pneumatic action between particular different types of stone that have been precisely crafted to work in this manner. So they stack these, you know, stone discs on top of each other, and one guy spins it while they pour water on it. And they are showing here that they're testing it in lots of different ways, that it's got, you know, a pretty good electrical charge, and that if they were to do some pretty precise engineering of the container to put this in, they could have quite a bit of power, electricity available and on hand, basically, a battery. This video is only 30 minutes. He's probably got 5 videos in there about the power sources that the Egyptians, and probably not the Egyptians, but whoever was there before the Egyptians, that the Egyptians say had all this stuff and were using all this stuff, had and were using. The high technology series is mostly about the big giant granite cases in the ancient pyramids. They're ginormous. They have a whole bunch of them. They're still inside the pyramids because we can't really actually move them. Even if we were to make them today, they wouldn't be single piece. So we can't really make them today. We don't really know how to make them today. We don't really know how ancient Egyptians were able to even make these things. And they're inside the pyramids. The stones that they're made out of are from not near the pyramids, way far away. So band UnchartedX contends that that's pretty much everything involved with the machining of those granite blocks and cases is all but impossible to us today. And there's a lot of evidence of the machining of those things, and that the people that is involved in talking about this, they don't think that you would put such effort and such precision into things that are just for religious observation, for a temple, for just hanging out and talking about the cosmos. But there's very important and precise functionality involved with the precision of all these things, because we couldn't even, like they say, we can't even, there's no way we would make a single piece 100-ton granite block into one of these things and then get it into a pyramid that we can't make either. And that's why they're even still in the pyramids, is because we can't get them out. We can't move them. We can't even move them out. Nobody can. So that's kind of where he's beginning his argument of high technology, part 1, and the machining. They in this particular episode, and there's at least 3 parts to this, series, the high technology series. They're looking at a lot of the tool marks, obvious tool marks. One of the points that he makes in the Coulthart interview about the high technology and the tools and the tool marks is that, there's we've never found any of the tools that made the high precision tool marks anywhere. We've never found any of that. But they've also never found any of the tools that the other Egyptologists say were used to make all this stuff, like the copper chisels and copper tubes and copper drills. They haven't found any of that either. Which is, tit for tat fun stuff to kind of like listen to people talk about, or even like maybe debate people about. But it's just the point there is that, the pyramids are ridiculous and we have no idea how they're built. I mean, maybe we have an idea, I guess, but we don't really know how they're built. We couldn't do it again. The people who found the pyramids, the Egyptians that will attribute building the pyramids to, they say they didn't build them, Dunn not build them. They didn't record building them. They recorded all this other stuff. They didn't record building the pots either. Their stories say that they found all this here. And then the pyramids that they did make since then, that they did record building, are made differently, made out of different stuff, and are trash. And it gets worse and worse and worse the further away they get from where even, the 6, 7, 8,000 years ago, they say that the pyramids were possibly built by the Old Kingdom Egyptians. The closer you get to modern times and the further away you get from back then, the pyramids that they kept building were just worse and worse and worse. Made out of worse stuff, made with worse techniques, and in worse condition today than the Great Pyramids are. So even the Egyptians say that the pyramids were built by other people. Christopher Dunn here on UnchartedX. I just kind of pulled all the Egyptian stuff from UnchartedX. It's a great place to find basically it all in one place. Everything that we're talking about everything that we're talking about on this side of the archaeological debate about the Egyptian pyramids since the mid-1800s, all kind of in one place. And this side of the debate is that the pyramids are way super old, which is what they kind of started with Coulthart, is that, kind of the other side of the archaeological debate, they say that, mankind, typical modern man history starts like 8,000 years ago, and that's when the pyramids are built. But we kind of figured out that that's probably not how it works at all. That the pyramids are not 8,000 years old, they're probably way older. There's a lot of other stuff that we found that's also way older. And modern man is probably way older also. And so probably, like what they start talking about, the 200,000 year number that everyone throws around for when modern man starts to use brain and spear. People don't love talking about that. People don't like Christopher Dunn, don't like talking about it and use it as criticism. Christopher Dunn is an engineer. He's, is going to Egypt and checking it out, going on the tours and noticing, trying to figure stuff out from an engineer standpoint. He thinks the Great Pyramids are basically power plants that you can use for a lot of purposes, like making power, storing power, making batteries. There's this one's 2 hours. I don't know if they're just talking. They're probably just talking. They might share a little bit of really technical, specific things. There's some like slides, some pictures of his, most recent visit to one of the pyramids, looking at really specific things inside of them. But he also looks into statues and the symmetry of the statues, and also into all the data collected in scanning the pottery and the batteries. A few very popular books on pyramids. The pyramids are not just in Egypt. This particular episode of UnchartedX is about the Machu Picchu pyramids. But there's pyramids everywhere. There's pyramids all over the place. There's a lot of pyramids, not just in Egypt. There's a lot of ancient pyramids, not just in Egypt. A lot of pyramids that we think are much older. Graham Hancock, UnchartedX. Not exactly pyramid focused, but there's a lot of pyramid info in Graham Hancock material. There's a lot of pyramids in South America, Central America, America, North America, Canada, Alaska, Antarctica. Ancient Aliens covers the pyramids many episodes. This is, I think, season... Oh, here's this other one, season 1, I think. Here's season 1, episode 16. It's funny because it's got like the same intro. It's like season 5, episode 1. Look, there's like the same intro. It's pretty hilarious. At some point, they explain, kind of map the world with ley lines. You'll see that the pyramids, all these places that we're talking about that have pyramids, are on all of the ley lines, lined up with each other, and on the intersections of the ley lines and lined up with each other. They find a lot of pyramids in a lot of these sites that they didn't know exactly where they were by just going to where the ley lines are touching each other and looking around. There's a whole episode of Ancient Aliens at some point where they're actually talking about, in many different locations, where they have multiple pyramids that are being built over a very long period of time by, a culture, by people there. And their alignment is changing over, the 12,000 year blocks or whatever, because the precession of the planet, the wobble. And so they're rebuilding their pyramids to line them back up to the right true north, basically. And that in some of the Ancient Alien episodes, they were saying that's how they were actually dating the build dates of some of the pyramids and other monuments and mounds, is by how they're lined up with true north. And so when that true north was actually true north, they'll date that site based on that, versus just other stuff, organic material and human materials that they could find on the site, because they don't find a lot of human materials past like a certain time, and that's used by one side of the archaeological debate to say that the humans weren't using brain and spirit very much back then. They definitely weren't building monuments, but they were. And so Ancient Aliens, is discussing monuments all over the planet of all shapes and sizes, not just pyramids that are built, way before 8,000 years ago. And Ancient Aliens is related because, they're talking about the pyramids, but none of this pyramid stuff, Old Kingdom, New Kingdom, old archaeology, new archaeology, standard Egyptology versus this new age Egyptology, doesn't really deal a lot with aliens until you start getting into like Emerald Tablet kind of talk, or Chariots of the Gods. So Chariots of the Gods, ask the questions about the pyramids and aliens and other monuments and who built what and who inspired or taught or helped It asks a lot of questions, and that definitely inspires and leads us to, 20 years of Ancient Alien episodes that include many on the pyramids and all the different things the pyramids could be and are and maybe aren't, or whatever. So, talking about the pyramids makes people uncomfortable. Everyone's got like a little pyramid joke in there about how the pyramids are built. Everyone's got like a little like 3-sentence, a 3 kind of paragraph kind of like thing about how the pyramids were built, probably. And then after that, man, it gets squirmy quick. Especially for including aliens. For whatever reason, whether it's spiritual or intergalactic, or if it's just Stargate stuff. One of the most significant parts of the pyramid thing is the pyramids being not just in Egypt. The ley line connection, the true north connection, the possession, knowledge, and connection. Those are all like significant parts. At some of these places, it seems like there's, some alien tribes being represented in the carvings and pictures of all the people that participated or were involved in some way or being documented for whatever reason at this place when they line this. I mean, this is old videos right here, but I mean, later, 2 decades later, when they have this all cleaned up a little bit, and they have all the little carvings in the walls, a bunch of them, for one, it's like little carvings of humans from all over the planet, not just from South America. It's like all sorts of different kinds of humans. And then inside there's not just humans, there's things that aren't humans, whatever they are. Lizard people, extraterrestrials, intergalactics, interdimensionals, other things that don't look like humans, but there's 100 carvings in there of 100 different humans, 100 different tribes, and 8 of them look like aliens and lizards. So the Chariots of the Gods is really, when you try and look into it a lot, Ben at UnchartedX doesn't talk about aliens very much. Coulthart here in an hour doesn't poke at the alien connection much or at all, or very hard, for sure. So it's not really a thing that's really actually considered like a part of the debate that's really going on usually. Start to get into it a little bit with Graham Hancock, but he's usually not even really talking about the pyramids very much anymore, the Egyptian pyramids. The Chariots of the Gods is really how we get to aliens, little green men, for pyramids, because of the questions asked in his book and in all the other stuff since then. That has kind of led to the ancient alien astronaut theory category camp, which is, documented and openly discussed, easily accessible in mainstream media, pretty much anything that you can watch stuff on. You can get Ancient Aliens, and there's 20 seasons. And they're talking about how aliens have influenced and been a part of human civilization for long ass time and part of everything. And they address every single little tiny angle there is because they've had 20 years to do it. So the point that I often make is that this body of knowledge has been, openly discussed and documented and easily accessible for really a long time at this point. As far as this goes, ancient aliens are 2+ decades old, and the people involved with it have been doing it for even longer. So we've got a bunch of decades, like 2 to 5 decades of pretty like open discussion and documentation. Very little stories about these people being, killed and murdered for talking about this, and then they just go away and they never talk about it ever again. The Coulthart interview is it's a good watch. I mean, it's like I said, it's only an hour long. Between the two of them, they go through kind of really all of UnchartedX's work and all the questions that they raise and some of the answers that they, kind of bring to the table, sort of, or at least the avenues to some of the answers with the, huge body of research he has here. So the pyramids are just a classic mystery in so many ways. It explodes across the planet with the ley lines and the alignment. The use of LiDAR in the jungle. Pyramids in Alaska and Canada, North America, Antarctica, on Mars. Obelisks in Egypt, Washington, D.C., the moon, Mars, Titan. It's a topic that the debate and argument from like the orthodox position versus like the new age kind of guys is really like weird. Like, why is it such a heavily contested objective? Well, why doesn't the page just kind of like turn to the next chapter? Like, oh, now, yeah, like we used to think that Ramses built them, but it looks like Ramses, he might not even found them. He was just in charge at some point. Many generations after the initial people that found them, stamped his name on everything. Like that's okay. It's okay for that to be the next part of the story, But it's not okay. There's a deep divide and debate over whether we're allowed to even discuss that. So that's one of the reasons. Like that's one of the main reasons. Like just the fact that it's obfuscated in that manner makes it insignificant and important on its own. What the fuck are they? I don't know. Like I wanted to skip over the Old Kingdom and the New Kingdom and the Egyptology stuff because that's like an older chapter that I don't know is exactly relevant anymore. So I'm obviously like on, this side. UnchartedX, Graham Hancock, Christopher Dunn, Randall Carlson side. And it's super interesting, the very, precise everything about the pyramids. Like I said, you can get further into like the talk with the normies when it comes to pyramids in Egypt and even the ley lines and the other pyramids, Machu Picchu and Göbekli Tepe. And it's a lot further really when it's compared, but it's still not very far. They're still gonna freak out at some point and they're not gonna want to talk about batteries especially. And then if you want to go ape mode, Chariots of the Gods, Ancient Aliens. Bam. And it's fast. Like you can say that without even taking a breath. Look what they got here. Amazing. So the pyramids, it kind of goes in that order: the moon, the pyramids. I don't think, unless we want to get in, like, just going with Chariots of the Gods and Ancient Aliens is kind of enough on the path of the aliens and the little green men. It gets us there. We can get into like the Anunnaki. I mean, we will obviously get into the Anunnaki, but the more I look into the Emerald Tablets, the less I want to spend time talking about them. So, yeah, the Anunnaki came here to get gold. They built bases on the moon and Mars. Then they, made humans. They made the pyramids. They got what they needed. There was some problems. There was some rebellions. They left. Maybe they were destroyed later, or then even in kind of an epic space war, or even like kind of like industrial accident, or an industrial accident during an epic space war, or whatever. And then the Egyptians came along and found the vases that Ben here is talking about, and the pyramids that are on our money. Even though if we could build them, we would totally have pyramids all over the place like other people apparently did. So I think that's it for this part of the pyramids. The Egyptian pyramids have some weird shit going on. The Egyptians do too. Their pottery, their statues, their batteries. There's pyramids all over the planet. You can find them wherever the ley lines cross, lined up on all the ley lines. They're everywhere. Did aliens build them? A lot of cultures say yeah. The aliens were really heavily involved in a lot of this stuff. Maybe even different kinds of aliens.